We are very delighted to be here for the third year running. It's something that we really cherish, it's something we look forward to, because we actually believe very passionately. First of all, you know that this year, Nation Media Group is celebrating its 50th anniversary. And in fact, we've been doing quite a few things, including involving yourselves in celebrating our 50th anniversary. And although I can confirm to you that I was not there when they started Nation 50 years ago, I was not in the organization. Looking at it, and we've done a film about it, which is currently showing at Westgate, about the headlines in history. Looking at it, you can see this is not a multinational that was born out there in some place in the developed world. This is a company that was born here through the initiative of His Highness the Aga Khan. When the country was going through the crusade for independence, he wanted to give the majority of people who are crusading for independence a voice to help them achieve that independence. And therefore, it started in many, many ways the same way that the SMEs in this country start. Looking at the numbers, the company did not make profit until its 9th year. And now, 50 years later, the profit is significant. I'm told that as a public company, you may not quote the numbers, but it's significant and growing. And therefore, we completely identify with the whole question of SMEs, and we are passionately convinced that that is the engine of this economy. Like somebody said, I always say that show me a country that does not have its own strong business institutions that are going beyond the country to conquer into other territories, and I'm going to show you a poor country. And therefore, when we gather here with yourselves, we are actually gathering, and that is the vision we had 3 years ago, where we are saying SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises, which otherwise do not get an opportunity of being celebrated, can gather together, and even if we do nothing else, offer yourselves a forum through which you can share ideas, you can share the challenges, you sometimes can share your frustrations, but even as important, you can share the opportunities, because it is these organizations that are going to determine the destiny of this country, and in many senses, the destiny of East Africa. So we are proud that, as you saw, these organizations are predominantly Kenyan. And therefore, when we make these profits, and when we make these leaps and bounds, those benefits trickle significantly more than the other organizations, particularly the multinational. And there's nothing wrong with being a multinational. Nation is now a multinational. So there's nothing wrong with that. But when an SME makes profit, when an SME expands, the linkage, the backward and forward linkage that obtains as a result of that growth is significantly more impactful to the population of Kenya than those other companies. And therefore, we are very delighted to be part of that initiative. As we move on, we hope that we can be able to, again, talk frankly about the opportunities. We hope that you, as SMEs that are actually doing very well, are going to be the catalysts of growth that you really are, because Kenya has gone through a significant period in the last couple of years. We have now got a new constitution, and whatever you say, this constitution is significantly better than anything we've ever had, and this constitution, from where I see it, is very significantly a pro-business constitution. So that is one thing that has happened in this country. The second thing that has happened during the same period is that the integration has now happened with the signing of the customs union in July. It has now opened up, and we are now talking about a population of 130 million people. Now, 130 million people is a significant number. And I think beyond knowing the flag of Burundi, we need to actively ensure that we can create goods and services that can travel the region. And when you think about it, even as we be 130 million people, we are still smaller than Nigeria. Why do I say that? You have already seen, particularly in the financial sector, organizations coming from Nigeria to this part of the world. The reason they do that is because they had a strong base of a very huge market upon which they are thrusting themselves to other parts of Africa. So it is almost an imperative that if we want to move to the other, to even beyond, we've got to significantly look at how we tackle this market. And maybe I don't even need to say that even as we be 130 million people, we are still probably just a little over 10% of India. So within one geography, we've got a huge population called India. And those are the organizations that we are competing with. And therefore, I hope we can even be catalysts of telling our governments to even stop thinking East African community, because that one is almost nearly done. To probably think more about COMESA, to probably even think about how we can merge COMESA and SADC so that we can just be able to do business from the north, from Cairo to Cape Town without any hindrances. That is when we are going to also be able to start competing on the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to give a long speech because there are people who are going to, and this is an opportunity for us to interact. But I want to say that I hope and pray that in my lifetime, the biggest company in East Africa, that time on my deathbed, will be someone sitting in this room. And I really hope that that is something that will be, that a top 100 today that we are calling small and medium-time enterprise, in the fullness of time, will actually be the biggest company in this region. It will be my pleasure and a warm send-off to the next land. Having said that, since I'm not about to go anywhere, I want then, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you my prayer, even as we move into that future. My first prayer is that in the next 5 years, and you can see I'm not very ambitious, in the next 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that 50% of the companies in this room will be doing business across East Africa with proportionate revenues coming from these 5 countries. If I see that, again, I'll just be delighted, I'll just be a very happy Kenyan. And whatever we can do as Nation Media Group to help facilitate that, because we're also on the same journey of trying to do more business across the East African countries, we can do together and ensure that that happens. That is my first prayer. My second prayer, ladies and gentlemen, is that at least 50% of you sitting in this room will be members of Club 101. Now, that means that 50% of you, during that period of the next 5 years, will have done $1 billion and above. Because Club 101 is actually desperately looking for critical mass. Because last year, when we tried to put guys together, you know the way you reserve a table in a restaurant, we could not fill the normal table for a restaurant. But I'm told that this year, we are going to be able to fill that table. I look forward in the next 5 years to be having completely different meeting rooms, so that next door will be Club 1, this side is, and which is where all of you will be, or at least 50% of you, and this side will be Top 100. And occasionally we'll be calling you from the other side and telling you, talk to these young men and women and tell them that it can be done. So that is my second prayer, ladies and gentlemen. The third prayer that I look forward to is that at least 25% of us will have floated in the stock exchange. And I say that knowing that Mr. Mwangi will be talking probably about that, and maybe he'll have a higher number. Here, I'm purely talking about my prayer, that 25% of you will have invested or had an IPO and floated in the stock exchange. And that, for me, is for one very selfish reason. Looking at you and all the conversation we have with you over break, and we have had with some of you over the last 3 years, you are managing very solid business and very exciting business. I would like to own at least one share. And I would want to own it in a very transparent way via the stock exchange. What I also know is that those sentiments are shared by many other Kenyans. But even more important, when you looked at the statistics that were shared here by Philip, we are still at the stage where a great proportion of our capital is being raised through own sources, through savings, through failing to pay dividends, which I'm sure we can do only up to a point. We need to look for resources, and I would want to venture to suggest that the stock exchange offers a huge opportunity for us to raise inexpensive capital to help us conquer the region and be instruments of even going beyond the region. So that is my third prayer. My fourth prayer, ladies and gentlemen, is that all of you will have doubled the number of employees, because in any case, your revenues will have increased significantly more. I say this because when you talk about Top 100, which goes to the heart of why we get involved in this initiative, it is through Top 100 that poverty is going to be eliminated in this country. It is through the base of Top 100, because we are all over the place. When I look at the 250 companies that participated, they are actually all over the country. They are not just in Nairobi. We've got very good distribution from across the country. Those are companies in Nyeri, in Kakamega, in Kisumu, actively doing stuff that is helping to change the fortunes of our fellow brothers and sisters in those towns. And it is through that we are going to make a difference. It is through that this country is going to develop, not through many of the things that we go to IMF and World Bank and talk about. Those guys can help us with the infrastructure. They can help us maybe with a little more energy. But the real business, day-to-day, that is going to transform the fortunes of our brothers and sisters is going to come from ourselves. And so my prayer is that all of us will have doubled the number of employees, because if we do that, we shall actually have contributed in creating human beings who can afford more human beings, who can actually afford the goods and services that the next guy produces. And that is how wealth gets created, and that is how we all move to the next level. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I pray that during that same period that we shall have embraced diversity. Again, we saw from the statistics that many of us are still at that stage, and rightly so. I'm not criticizing it. Rightly so. You are still in that stage where you are managing the business yourself, with the family, and with very close relatives. That is rightly so, because at the stage at which the business is in. For us now to make it to the next level, for us to become East Africa beaters, COMESA beaters, Africa beaters, and global players, we probably need to start diversifying in terms of where we get our talent. And therefore I pray that in those 5 years, we shall have created such diversity that when we stand here to talk about our organizations, it will be reflecting the face of Kenya. With those prayers, ladies and gentlemen, and hoping that you grant me those wishes, I would want to add there and say we shall continue as Nation Media Group to support this initiative. As you have heard, we are already on the second year in Uganda. We shall be starting in Tanzania, and I would want to say that maybe in the fullness of time, we shall be looking at Top 100 maybe across the region. And having said that, I would also want to say, I was doing when the gentleman was asking the question there, I did some rough arithmetic. And I said the number of companies who applied for the Top 100 competition were about 250. And those 250 range from companies doing nearly 1 billion shillings to companies doing just about 100 million shillings. When I looked at the distribution, I would say roughly the average would be a turnover of 400 million. Now, if you look at 400 million, 250 companies that are involved, you are talking about 100 billion shillings. So let us also not kid ourselves that it is a small initiative. It isn't. We would want to do more numbers. We would want to get very many more people involved. But even as it is, we are talking about men and women who are commanding 100 billion shillings in this economy. That is 10% of Kenya's budget. So let us clap for ourselves and not think that it is a small thing. Because even as we move into the future, we would want to make sure that when you come and tell you that you are number 10 in the top 100, we've created a criteria that can stand the test of integrity. That is important for us. Because if it cannot start the test of integrity, then you ask, why am I number 9 and not number 8? Why did that guy become number 1? And I know that auctioneers were in his office last week. So it is very, very important that we have a criteria and that everything that we do, certainly for KPMG, who are, global auditors of excellence, and Nation Media Group, which always speaks the truth. As you know, in everything that we do, it is important that that credibility is not compromised by any initiative that we get involved in. And finally, I want to say that we have had a discussion with the PS, Bwana Nalo, and when you talk about civil servants, they are sometimes, in many cases, are not in control of their time, and he's not been able to make it because of some urgent thing that happened in the office. But like Robert said, we are going to continue being happy, and we are not going to feel the pinch of that. We are going, however, to raise the issues, and we are going to make arrangements that any issues that touches on his ministry will be on his docket before the end of the day tomorrow. And but together, we shall still continue and ensure that we have a great day. So I want to thank you very much for listening, and maybe I take this opportunity to invite my partner. I use partner in a different context. I'm not a partner of KPMG. My partner in the Top 100 initiative, the CEO of KPMG, Mr. Mwaura, to come and address us. Thank you very much, and God bless you.